I think it's safe to say that Vince can write a script, so it just kind of starts going. I remember during one of the takes, it's one of the more intense scenes we filmed. In one of the takes, you slipped into an Irish accent, which I still don't understand why.
Did I?
Yeah, you did, and I thought it was because you were trying to break me up. Of course, I was thinking, like, what's he doing? Maybe I just going?
How is he going to try to sabotage me now?
Yeah. I remember, and Aaron heard it too, so I don't know where it came from. Really,
it must have really happened.
I think it did.
I got carried away with the emotion.
This moment of hog tying him, I remember after like the fourth or fifth take, Aaron said, "Yo, MacArthur, can you do me a favor?" And I said, "Yeah, what's up?" And he goes, "Can you try acting?" I said, what do you mean? He said, "You're really tying my hands to the point where they're about to bleed." And sure enough, his wrists had some pretty significant marks on them from the extension cord.
Oh, well, he got you back with that bite on the finger.
Yes, and then he bit my finger. He did bite my finger. It's amazing to see this all cut together, because to get that angle of Aaron's face, they cut a drop floor in there, so the camera was actually in the floor.
Right, they took out the floor, and the camera guy was waist deep in there, or maybe even deeper, shooting upward.
Yeah, I think this whole set was elevated about 6 feet.
That's right.
On risers, so for that shot, the whole camera crew was beneath us in the floor looking up, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Tom Bauer.
Just seeing you guys together, it brings such a smile to my face.
I love Tom. He's an old theater guy.
Yeah.
This scene was shot on location. So when we're inside the apartment, we're on the set, which they built. They built an exact replica of this in the studio. But this was my first day of shooting. Here I'm doing a little shifting from side to side. That's my indication that I'm not really a cop.
I see that. I didn't. You know what? It read, and I didn't notice it, and I think that's effective acting.
You can watch this scene later to study.
I will. I will break it down. I break all these scenes down for my 4-year-old son. I'm not sure he gets it, but that's okay. He's just such a great actor, and just this character. He was just so realized. It was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it was hard not to laugh whenever Tom showed up.
Yeah. Show me the money. I let you go.
I like this moment where you put the gun down and you talk to him like a friend for a second.
For me.
I remember when we filmed it, we kind of played it a couple different ways to figure out when the moment was to drop the gun. Uh-huh. It's kind of the nice part about working with Vince is that, he's so specific, but he's still open to ideas and the discovery process when you're filming it. This whole scene, actually, the choreography of this, of getting the refrigerator off and how the money was in there and how much of the money Aaron could take by a certain line to kind of all work, was a real collaborative effort, really, with every department.
Right.
As most a whole film is. But this in particular had so much coordination that had to really be executed. And
well, Vince was so great on set in terms of, inventing new things as he went. He really brought his writer self to the set.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's constantly coming up with new ideas to try.
Yeah. There's a scene way later in the movie. I know we're supposed to be talking about this one, but the scene way later in the movie, in the final shootout, where the shattered glass falls to the ground and it makes the 3 remaining henchmen kind of snap back and look. I remember was a in the moment idea that Vince had, and it's kind of emblematic though, just to always be open to what's in front of you. Even with this final moment here of Aaron slapping the gun was something we had found while we were shooting this. That moment right there.
Right.
And it's really kind of it's an amazing moment to not have had previously scripted, because it's such a defining moment of where his character is in terms of an overall arc and also just the threat level that I pose.
Hi, this is Charles Neuwirth, one of the producers on El Camino. And this scene is a great scene. I love this. This is, and I love it for one particular reason. This piece of art that just showed up there is actually a sculpture that I made that Vince knew about and wanted to put in the movie. So I was flattered about that. In any case, the set itself, you can see all the deconstruction on the walls, how the wallpaper is ripped off, how it places tossed and turned upside down. We spent a lot of time figuring that out, how to get it done. This shot in itself is unique because we did it in two separate pieces, two separate plates, where we wanted to have both of them in focus. So we did a foreground shot of the one actor and the background shot of another actor separately and married them together. The location itself was unique because we found this location in Albuquerque. It was this very quirky apartment building. It was built in the 70s. And almost everything you see art directed is the way it was. We changed a few paint colors, but almost everything is as this apartment existed. We did build a replica of this floor and the apartment on stage so we could move walls and do what we had to do. But the swimming pool in the bottom, that all existed with no water. It was a filled-in swimming pool. It was a really unusual, quirky location that Vince felt would really work well for the sequence. And we're actually coming up to a moment which is one of my favorite moments in the movie, where Neil, who is the fake police officer, goes up to his truck. And this is where Jesse takes a look. He sees Candy welding, and it's an epiphanal moment. It triggers him. You can see in his eyes, he is realizing, wait a second, this is something that is in my unconscious, and this guy, I know this guy. And you can see Neil react with that look in his face. Oh, yeah, you know who I am. And Jesse, goes back to that moment, which is a very painful moment for him when he was chained up in the lab. And I love this shot, which is a pull-away shot that Vince constructed. It's great because you've got this moment with Jesse. You're sort of focusing on him. And Neil enters the frame from the right. And you'll see him come up in a moment or two here. It's like, yeah. And here's the past. It's like, hey, I got you, dude. And Jesse goes on to then figure out who Neil actually was, and takes retribution later in the movie. And that's the scene.
The voice you're hearing now is that of Sharon Bialy, one of the casting directors for El Camino, Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul.
And I'm Sherry Thomas, the other casting director on Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and El Camino.
So here we have the incredible Aaron Paul, who Sherry and I go back with 12 years ago when he auditioned for the pilot of Breaking Bad.
I think the exciting part about Aaron was another actor, as all of them were from the pilot, that came through the process of auditioning and auditioned several times. And initially, I think the role was slightly younger than Aaron was at the time. And once the chemistry read happened with Brian during the studio and the network tests, it was unanimous and it didn't matter. And we all know the history of the role, that it was not supposed to make it this far to where there's an entire movie about what happens to our Jesse Pinkman. But he was just phenomenal, and the chemistry between the two made it work.
In the scene coming up now, you'll see the great Marla Gibbs, who is a 5-time Emmy nominee and a star in her own right. Sherry and I keep notes on every actor that's ever come into the office, and I looked up our notes and it said no ego, no attitude, off book, which means she had completely memorized her fake scene because we don't give out the real scenes due to the security. And she was an absolute star and pleasure in the waiting room. And I also remember writing down, God, I hope Vince doesn't recognize her. Because she has a naturalistic feeling to her, and she just becomes seamlessly whoever the character is in a scene. So you don't feel a star walking in, you feel this woman who needs a vacuum cleaner.
Mm-hmm. because she doesn't push. The work is all just about the words. It's fantastic.
Her, like most of the actors, I think almost all the actors in the universe of El Camino and Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, they let their ego go to the side and they serve the writer's vision, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah.
I may take you up on that.
Excellent.
And now we have the great Robert Forster.
Yes, they do.
So in the history of Sherry and I working with Vince Gilligan over 12 years, he only made 2 offers where actors didn't have to read. And one of those was for Robert Forster. He had always wanted to work with him, and every season kept trying to find the perfect role for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, in the final season of Breaking Bad, he did.
He sure did.
If you watch the scene between the two of them, one of the signs of a great actor is how well they listen. And you can stay on Robert Forster even when Aaron is talking, because he is listening, is so active, and he's taking in everything that's happening all the same time. The wheels are turning in his head about how he's going to deal with this young man that's a little bit out of control. And you see some of the great nuance that Aaron brings to everything, because he has a roller coaster of emotions within this 4-minute scene where he goes from anger to vulnerability to just with humor.
With the humor.
Something he was always able to bring to all the scenes he was in that no one had ever expected.
Hello, I'm David Cole, supervising and lead digital colorist on El Camino. My role in the film was manipulating all the beautiful images that Marshall Adams shot. So I affect all color and tone and mood in the post-production world. So this scene in particular is, I think, is one of the most beautiful scenes in the movie, even though it's just set in a vacuum cleaner store. There's a lot of nuance that we did with shapes and to direct the eye. The audience ultimately wants to see a beautiful image. But what we can do in post-production is actually make the audience look in particular areas, feel the emotion of the characters even more, and remove any distractions. When we started the film, we did multiple versions of it. We started with the theatrical 239, which is the letterbox version, and we really wanted to embrace that theatrical feel. The TV show was always theatrical in its scope, but now with the movie, we actually had all these tools at our disposal. So we started with that, and then we moved into high dynamic range. Now, this was the first time that Vince and the rest of the creative team had really sunk their teeth into doing high dynamic range, and that gives us so much more in terms of the palette of blacks to whites, so where your darkest darks are to your ultimate whites. And with a film like this, it really benefited from it because we had so much of the film was in night or in dark areas with flashlights or flames, and then we would go out to the desert and get burned with this hot blistering sun. So it really added to the character of the film. But HDR can also reveal things which you normally wouldn't see. So, for example, that window or the doorway behind Jesse revealed that there was flags in a neighboring car yard that were flapping, so they were distracting. So we actually needed to get them fixed in visual effects and in the grade as well, so we would not be distracted and we're just watching, you know, the performances in this scene. Grading Robert Foster was amazing, especially in some of these close-ups that Marshall gave me. It's just there's so much character in his face, and like this scene is just so beautiful and such a fantastic thing to work on. Even that shot going down the desk has a lot of these shapes that I was talking about to really direct the eye into both of the characters, because ultimately everything that we do is at the service of the story. So if we're distracting from that, then we haven't done our job well. But if we have done it well, you are just drawn into the characters and you're drawn into the story, and it happens to look beautiful as well.
Hi, I'm Marshall Adams, the cinematographer for El Camino, and I have with me
Jake Cross, the key grip.
All right. Welcome, Jake.
Hey,
It's good to be here, Marshall. How you doing?
Good. This particular set actually is one that is a carryover from the original show, obviously. So it had a look and a style and a feel already that was kind of established, as well as the location that we were obviously going to be reusing. We tweaked it a little bit, lighting wise and also set wise. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, when we were there on the first scout, Vince realized that back wall there had never been photographed in the series, and that allowed us to be able to put that wall back there with the windows in it and stuff, have a little bit more freedom lighting wise. But yeah, so and obviously, trying to emulate the look that was already established by Mr. Slovis, Michael Slovis, the DP from Breaking Bad, and so we were adjusting that and tweaking it a little bit, getting a little bit darker in some of the corners, like we did here in this shot. But yeah, so that's the kind of the history on the set. Jake, trying to remember what we were doing. We had nets and NDs on all those windows, right, to knock them down, try to bounce.
Yeah, it was pretty spicy outside, so we net and ND'd the windows to bring it down, and we certainly did a little battling with the sun, reflecting, kicking off the windshields of the oncoming traffic. So I was, working with that, trying to keep the kicks from bouncing all over the set.
Jeopardize yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you can see there that you can see it has a little bit of tint in the window, but worked out well. I mean, the balance is fantastic. I love that shot too. It's just amazing. And working with these guys is just such a pleasure too. It's so much fun being in there and shooting this stuff with them. It's just incredible.
Yeah, what a pleasure it was just to, Aaron and Bob, and for me it was really special working with Bob again. I worked with him like 25 years ago on Jackie Brown, and this guy is was the most professional actor of ever, one of the top tier brothers I've ever worked with, and 25 years later he's still A1 true blue solid.
Yeah, that was so sad when we heard that he passed away. I don't know if I ever told you, when he arrived at the set, I happened to be standing at the doorway right there, and his van pulled in, and Steve, the driver, kind of pointed at me, and I said something to him, and I was wondering kind of what he was saying. Turns out, that Robert was a huge fan of cinematographers and cinematography since he was young, and worked on medium cool, and with Haskell Wexler, and Haskell kind of took him under his wing and showed him a lot of stuff about what the cinematography was all about, and so he's been a big fan. So he really went out of his way to find me and say hello and touch base, which I just thought was the sweetest thing in the world. Just such a pro and real sweet. Incredible.
Yeah, so genuine. Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, I actually remember the moment we were like day 3 or 4 into the movie when we were shooting the scene at the front door with Badger and Pete. At his front door. Yeah, no, it was at the practical location, and so he opens the door and you can see Aaron. You get close up on him. And he did this thing where he didn't move a muscle on his face, but he went from completely guarded and don't mess with me, to incredibly vulnerable in one. I didn't even see a muscle move in his face, and I was like, wow, we are not in Kansas anymore. This guy is just a whole different level, man.
You got
just incredible, so good. So you want to talk about some of the car mounts that we did? I know we had some really complicated ones. Obviously, we put mounts on just about every place you can on a moving vehicle.
Yeah, it's funny, job to job. We start the show, and there's usually some car work. And what I noticed during prep was it felt like every day we were going out to the cars, another car, and lining up shots in all these different positions all around the car, up high, down low, doing movement, static, everything. So it was I realized at that point, there's going to be a lot of car mounts here, a lot of car rigs happening this show.
I would say the most difficult one was that blue car, right? Was
it Thunderbird?
Yeah,
Which kind of
yeah,
car?
right. It was a Thunderbird, but we did that whole big push in on it while the car was moving. That was just incredible.
Oh yeah, the motorized slider. Yeah.
Such a fun move. I mean, it all worked in one, which was really cool. And actually, I'll never forget the day where we were in prep when Vince realized how many car shots we had to do, and he said, "I'm never writing another car scene as long as I live."
The funny thing about that Thunderbird motorized slider shot was that, you know, when we were getting that up and running, I don't know if you remember, but Charles, one of the producer, was like, "Hey Jake, how long do you think it's going to take to strike this rig once we get the shot?" And I'm like, 15 minutes. He's like, "If you do it in under 15 minutes, we bet him $400 that we could strike it in under 15 minutes." And we did. We did it in 13 and change, and he pretty much bought me and the boys dinner. Well, is this what we had, the killing the reflection off the windshield there in Aaron's car with a 20 by overhead with a stand and a scissor lift and an extra solid and wind blowing around, and
It was, for some reason, I guess we didn't see it coming. I don't know, was the angle of the windshield or what the deal was, but boy, I'll never forget. It was like we thought this simple scene was going to be, no big deal to do, and then we had to empty your truck, unfortunately, to control all of the reflections and light and everything.
Yeah, the windshield curved to the edges, and you end up seeing a lot more than just a little bit in the reflection. We had to kill it all, so it was definitely an undertaking to make that happen. But we got her done.
Yeah, right.
Hi, I'm Ashley Michelle Marsh, set decorator, and I want to tell you a little bit about Jesse's parents' house. The biggest challenge for us on the set decoration team boiled down to how could we match 2 different locations and keep the spirit true to Breaking Bad. Due to other scheduling factors, we weren't actually able to film at the original location for interior scenes. We had to immediately find a quick visual solution. The answer? These shears in the background behind the sink. In just a few scenes, when Jesse is breaking in through the back of the house, you can see the same curtain shears from the outside in the backyard. This small little trick helps your brain seamlessly put together the location without any other context. Fortunately, most viewers have already seen the background in other episodes, but these shears firmly plant where the kitchen is, where it's supposed to be. We also use the same method in the front and side of the original exterior house, using a bold maroon pattern. In terms of style choices, we wanted to continue the very traditional feeling that Jesse's family seems to portray. Classic dark wood tones, traditional lighting, traditional rugs. These are themes that can also be seen in the original